All right, you maggots, listen up. Let's see if I can tell this story in such a way you follow me. I notice when I watch some of my videos, I notice misspeaks and stuff. And this story is about a pizzeria, West Bell Plaza in Wayne. It was called Mr.Pizza. Inside there were three kids because they were younger than me. They were college kids, and they made the pizzas. And I would go from the Radio Shack over there to get a slice of pizza and a Sprite. I was drinking Sprite back in those days. So anyway, uh, we went over there. This one guy, Ed's Pizza, was always better. So enough people made a comment, and the two Ed would say thank you, and the other two guys would kind of be annoyed. And and if so, one day Ed comes over to the Radio Shack, and he says, "John, what are you doing tonight?" I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I'd like you to come over. The three of us are going to cook a pizza, and we want you to watch, and we want you to pick out which is the best pizza." That's all right. So I go over there. Now, picture this. They're all using the same dough. It's a big blob of dough. They're all using the same sauce, spaghetti sauce. They're using a ladle. So when they put it on the pie, the exact amount of tomato sauce is going on every pie. When they do the cheese, same thing. The way it's measured out and put on the pie. So the three of them are each making a pie, and I'm walking around watching. And you know what, pizza? You take the piece of dough, you cut off a piece of dough from the big block, and then it's measured. And then they roll it and they spin it. And then they lay it down. And there's some, flour involved. You throw the flour around to keep the dough from sticking to your hands and to the breadboard or the surface that you're making on. So I'm watching this. And the two guys are now done with their pie and they're ready to put it in the oven. I notice Ed is still working on his pizza. He spun it around. It's down on the board. It's got the flour underneath it, and he's kneeing it down. And I'm not saying nothing. I'm waiting until the pies get cooked, and they pull them out. So the pies get cooked. They pull them out. They put the three of them in the counter. And I said, just visually looking at the pie, Ed's pie looks totally different. So they're all like right away, the two guys are realizing they're going to lose. The pizza didn't cook right. And what happened was, I told Ed, I said, you're spinning the dough around, you're getting it to the right size that has to be, and then you put your ladle of spaghetti sauce on it, or gravy, depending on how you were raised. But I said, before you do that, you're kneeing the dough down, and they're not. They're lazy. And he didn't realize that. I said, and he goes, well, what would that have to do? Oh, the other two guys, what would that have to do with it? I said, well, when he puts his pie in the oven, his dough is thinner. And the rate of heat into the sauce is going to be quicker. The cheese melting, the whole dynamics of the cheese and the sauce is going to be different. When Ed's pie would come out of that oven, you could see the sauce was basically cooked. Now, normally I think the spaghetti sauce is cooked, but it's cooked like a second time. Maybe got some type of oxidation going there, and with the cheese and maybe the oil in the cheese because it's a little bit hotter. But the look of his pie is totally different. The other thing too is when you cut the pie, with that little round cutter, the bottom of his pie is browned. And they were in the oven the same exact amount of time. And they all turned their pies at the same time. So by him making the pie, the dough thinner, by kneeing it down, he changed the dynamics on how it's going to cook. And it's going to come out more crispy because it's thinner. Well, anyway, that's what it was. And I said, well, that's my theory. I said, I watched you guys. You're all using the same dough. You're using the same amount of dough. You're spinning it to the same diameter. You're using a ladle of spaghetti sauce. So all three of the pies have the same amount of spaghetti sauce. All three have measured cheese that's then sprinkled. So the only difference between the three people is Ed is doing an extra step on the dough. He's kneading it down with his knuckles, and he's making it more consistent. And then he puts his ladle of spaghetti sauce, and then he sprinkles his cheese on. So the two guys didn't say, "Well, let's go again, and we'll knead our dough." No, they didn't want. They lost. They didn't even care. See, this is what I look for. A lot of times when I fail at something, I'm saying, well, what went wrong? You know, it's a rabbit hole. You fall in the rabbit hole. Like Ed knew something was going on there. You know, people coming up to him saying, you know, that slice was really good. And then the other two guys, they didn't want their pies. Visually, it looked different. Their pies look like you bought it at their pies after it was cooked looked like you bought it from a grocery store. One of them frozen pies, and then you cook it, and it's the sauce is there, the cheese is there, but what it looks like is just wrong if you're into pizza. And he comes over to the Radio Shack. Are you available tonight? And the whole thing. He knew something was going on, and he was hoping I would spot it. And because he was watching the stuff I was building, I built a wireless telephone. Later on, people had them in their houses. You could be outside and answer the phone. I built one of them way before. I built one when they were $3,000. I built one out of parts in Radio Shack and got it to work. You couldn't dial out though. You could only answer the phone if somebody called. But it was for someone that's outside working on the pool. And when the phone would ring, they would hear the phone ring, and they could actually answer it from outside. You couldn't dial out. I didn't go that step because the price of the phones dropped so fast. You know, like I told you, when you come up with an idea and you start building it, you got to be really fast. But anyway, Ed knew that I would probably spot the difference, and that's what I try to do. You know, like this is a huff and puff circuit, and at first I couldn't get it to work. It was working, but it just wasn't working right. And it turned out to be on the back. I don't know if you can see these 4 capacitors across each chip, and this keeps the chips from glitching, so they work exactly the way they're supposed to work. And that's what made it. I had a circuit board where it worked perfectly, but another one wired exactly the same that didn't work. And see, from my experience, that's glitching. And wire layout. Your wires might be run slightly different, but I had 2 boards exactly wired the same, and then you say, well, maybe I got a bad chip. Or maybe one chip's, but you can't be more sensitive. It's a digital chip. So anyway, you could say one of the chips is acting like an analog, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, the first step you do on IC chips is you do a bypass. These chips are across ground and +5, whatever it was. And that keeps the chip, when the chip switches, it keeps the noise from going out into another chip, and that those pulses being counted. Because when flip-flops flip, when counters advance, they put little spikes out on the power line, on the 5-volt line. And if another chip is in between going from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1, right in that spot, that's analog, and noise can get in there, and it counts it. So these counter chips on here, they were working. The whole thing's working, but it was a little bit flaky. And then when I added those 4 capacitors on, that fixed the problem. I tell you, I stay with something until it becomes really painful. And Ed picked the right guy. He comes in and he starts telling me, because I had conversations with him about other things, staying with it, figuring out what the problem is. You know, he saw me repairing people's CB radio installations. They come up to the front of the store, and I would get the wacky oddball thing. So all the Radio Shacks in the area, when they had a problem with an install, they would change the CB radio, they would change the antenna, and the problem was still there. And one time it was a Volkswagen Yeah, it was like a Volkswagen car. Might have been a Volvo, but the guy put a rooftop mount antenna on the roof of the car, and he had a sunroof, and the RF was coming into the sunroof, getting into the amplified mic, and it was messed up. See, the first thing I did was it was doing this weep, 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 weep like that when you would transmit. And I know there's some type of motorboating feedback. I measured the battery, so I immediately said, let me get a regular microphone into this CB, into the Radio Shack CB. Put the regular mic in, it doesn't do it. It works perfectly. So now I know the signal from the antenna is getting down through the sunroof, through a glass window, into the microphone, which is right below it. So then we went with that piece of, I don't know if we used a street sign or whatever, might have been a garbage can lid. We put that on top of the sunroof, it fixed it. So now we know we have a problem with that. And then we tried using, the microphone had a volume control, but I said to him, when you turn that back, that only adjusts how much sound's going into the microphone. If RF is getting into that circuit and into the radio, nothing has changed. You turn and that's what it was. So the guy basically switched back to a regular microphone. He was happy and it worked. But the real solution would probably be take the microphone apart and put some shielding. Get some of that aluminum foil type tape for when you install an air conditioner. But this is the stuff they used to bring to me. And I used to just use scientific method, try to get it to what doesn't do it, and figure out what does do it. But at the other Radio Shack stores, they would just change the CB radio, change the antenna, and they would never change the microphone. See, I changed the microphone right away because I know there's an amplifier in that, and it's plastic, and there's no shielding. So that signal, that RF can get right into that circuit, get amplified, come out of that, go into the radio, back around, back through the antenna, reap, 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 reap. That's what it would do. But that's what I just want to tell you about the pizza, the whole thing. It's all the same thing. And someone will say, what does a pizza have to do with radios? It's scientific method. It's scientific method. You pay attention. What is Ed doing different than the other two guys? And one guy was, I think his name was Skip Lenantine. And I could tell you stories about this. These are the guys that we used to throw snowballs at each other, and we had fun. It was an outside mall. It was a strip mall, and it was outside of Willowbrook Mall, and it was the West Bell Plaza. But anyway, what were these other two guys doing different than what Ed was doing? Ed was putting a little extra into making the pie, and Ed was also, I believe he was, I won't say he was group leader. He was basically the boss at night. And he really cared about his job. But the other two guys, it was just a job to them. And Ed's the type of guy, when he's doing something, he's going to do it right. And years later, I met him. He had gone through college, and he was at a tech school, and he was in administration. He went into that, sort of management, sort of working with people that want to go to the school. Yeah, I was up off of Route 23 on my bicycle, and he pulled over. Hey, John, how you doing? And I looked at him at first. I'm like, oh, yeah, Ed, how you doing? He had a girlfriend that I don't know if he married her, but he met her at the Value House. But that's all I wanted to tell you. Sometimes staying with something and figuring it out, it really helps in other areas because you start, it's a way of thinking. And that's what that Ken Recor used to tell me. Well, what do we know? What don't we know? And you start documenting, and all of a sudden, the guy has a amplified mic. See, the amplified mic on the CB radio was a Radio Shack product, and I knew right away it was just plastic. I had opened them up and gone inside, and to fix it, you probably have to put some shielding in there, or put some type of shielding on the sunroof. That tape, I always tell you about that aluminum foil tape. I got some of it here. This stuff. Let's make sure it's in the frame. It's a roll of aluminum foil tape. I use it on my air conditioner. The air conditioner, which is off right now, but there's the foil around the air conditioner. And that I also use that foil for shielding in some projects. I think that's it. Let's get the camera back in the tripod pack. All right, I think that's it. All right, that's it.